Hello, my name is Elena, and I am an alter in this system. I have not been on the channel much. I have one video where you meet who I am, but I don't come on here often. I don't front often, and when I do front, it is not usually a positive trigger. It is usually a negative trigger. I, as an alter, am here to contain, or I was at least, to contain certain alters, which makes me a gatekeeper. I used to be a persecutor, which means I used to cause harm to the body or other alters in the system. I did this because I had somewhat of a nihilistic outlook on life, and I believe that morals were relative, and that if you caused harm, it didn't matter unless you decided that it did. And I had this idea that people who had better morals than I did were deluding themselves into thinking that morals even mattered. Which isn't to say that I hurt anybody else outside of the body. There are consequences to my actions. But I did harm the body, and I was mean. But I also, whenever I was doing those things, didn't realize that I was an alter. I thought that I was the host of the system. When I realized that I was an alter, it was not perfect thereafter. I still harmed sometimes. But I consider myself no longer a persecutor, and I consider myself a protector of this system. I still know things that Charlie and the other alters in the system will never be able to comprehend. And that's not to say that I have secrets, because they are fully aware of the things that I know. But even if I were to describe them, they would not be able to grasp fully what I was speaking about. But I've come here today to talk about the persecutors that I guarded in this system. They are no longer around. They have since fused into the system. But this job, and taking that job as a gatekeeper, was one of the most important roles and things and memories and places that I've ever been in my life, and the things that I've done. It's what I existed to do for a long time. And it is one of the hardest jobs you can have, not just in a system, and life in general, and existence. Being a keeper of some of the most terrifying things the brain can construct is not easy. So, there were 3 persecutors, which not all of them fit the exact definition of a persecutor role, but we called them that, which in retrospect was not good, but they're all integrated now. There was, by far, the most challenging one, Predator, also nicknamed Mr. Self-Destruct, Greason, and Guts. So, I'm putting a lot of trust in telling you about these things. Predator sent us to the mental hospital. Predator caused irreversible wounds. Predator never spoke, but Predator never needed to speak. It was his mere presence which could suffocate you and take your breath away from you. I'm not an easily startled person. I'm not scared of anything I can conceive of except for him. In the inner world, there is a bathtub. It's part of my section of the inner world. It's a place of trauma, but I sit there sometimes. And when he was around, sometimes he would come through the walls and appear as sort of a shadowy figure. And his essence was of nothing but destruction. His essence wanted you to destroy yourself. It was nihilism to an unimaginably destructive degree. It was the idea that this life has no value, and the people within it, the people around you, are so unaware of the horrors of humanity that they might as not even count. They might as well not even be real. Because how stupid can you be before you're not even conscious anymore? They're just NPCs from his point of view. And the only way to make yourself feel something is by causing the worst destruction to yourself possible. That is the essence of what Mr. Self-Destruct was. He never saw L or any of the other alters until we fused, because I made sure that that did not happen. I'm not sure if this story has been told on the channel before, but trigger warning for talk of self-harm, because this is a triggering story. But this was shortly before we went to the hospital. And this was before Nico integrated, so Elle was still going by she, her. She was sitting in her bed, very, very depressed. Had her journal out, which she liked to write in. And she had just self-harmed. And she was writing in her journal. And she put her head down on the bed. And however much time passed, what inhabited the body sat the body up. It took the razor blade, and it took our arm, and it carved the word whore. And then it put the razor blade down. And then L resurfaced to the front. And you can imagine how that might have felt. DID isn't fun. But people saw this wound and they asked L, what does that word mean to you? And Elle didn't know that she had DID. So she always said it just rolled off the tongue. But I can understand why he put that word. It was just to scare you. It was just a threat. That's all I'll say about that. Greason. Greason is Swedish for the pig. He was humanoid in presentation, but looked quite corpse-ish and unrecognizably decayed. He spent his time in a cage in the tunnels. And if any systems want any advice on how to handle persecutors and whatnot, if you keep them in cages, or they reside in cages, or they never eat anything or nothing, they're being treated like how they present themselves You cannot do that. I know it seems like the best course of action. I know it seems like where they belong. But it doesn't feel good. Greason is tough to describe. I don't know if I can or should. Guts, the final one. Guts looked a bit like Greason. He stayed in a room, locked room, very small, all white walls, and he could not speak. He could not speak English. Anytime he went into the body, he could not speak English. I'm not sure how well he understood it, but he could not speak English. I suppose he's not really a persecutor, but he was defensive and loud and scared. And he was a trauma holder. And he's probably been around since we were about 3. And through healing, he was not dangerous. He was not going to hurt you. He appeared dangerous, but he was just scared. We gave him a room in the upper part of the inner world, and eventually through therapy, through working with him, we turned him from this fleshy humanoid figure into a grizzly bear, a baby grizzly bear. And then over time, we integrated that grizzly bear. And I think he was a fragment of sets of memories, at least is my theory. And as far as the integration of Greason, it happened spontaneously, and I'm not sure when. The integration of Predator took a bit as well. We tethered him to an object, and he could not leave or hurt. And eventually we turned him into a box of teeth. He could not cause harm, but he would get anxiety. And it was the box of teeth chattering and saying lies. And eventually, through therapy, we integrated that box of teeth. It's strange how your brain processes things. So, Elle's dog is barking. I'm going to close the door and finish up. So, there's a lot more I could say on that, but I think I'm done here for now. It was interesting being on the channel again. Perhaps I'll come back another time. Thank you.